And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever, whenever you are. I hope this finds you well. I am Shaggy. I am Philalitheia. It is Friday. The Dolphins lost in Tua Tonga Vailoa fashion last night. I'm in a bad mood about it. So instead of sitting here and scrolling TikTok and YouTube shorts to watch people either suffer the loss or celebrate the loss or just make fun of the Dolphins fans, I am in a mood today. In a mood. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping myself clean. I feel like I stink. I probably don't. I just feel like I stink. I did a lot of movement yesterday in the heat with my warm stuff on, and it was too hot for that. So maybe I take time before I leave to wash. I woke up in a place, and self-care is difficult for me when I'm in this place. So I live in a tent. I don't have a corporate overlord. Good morning, Alec. Tell me I have to keep my hair clean, or that I have to brush my teeth, or whatever. And so we try to do self-care around the shaggy Philalitheia household for self-care reasons. And I just haven't got there today. I just haven't got there. And I ran out of time before 10 a.m. So here we are. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for being here. Good morning to those of you who are in the morning. Good afternoon, good evening, good night to those of you who are elsewhere. Today, I am going to be reading extensively from the Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. We can do some research into who the guy was after. I don't care about the personalities of these people that I read. It's in the work. You can know everything you need to know about them from what they've written. And then we can talk about how reading is letting things into your brain, on how some of the comments I receive are just better left unread, entirely unread. Some of the text we receive. Hello, Apriya. Uh, Ari's left. Better unread. Better unread. But I'm going to be reading the Consolation of Philosophy because I am celebrating my journey to homelessness. I'm celebrating my year in my way. Hi, Sippin. Because I found consolation as I was approaching homelessness, reading the Consolation of Philosophy, meditating on that, reading Plato, meditating on that. My journey to becoming Philalitheia was found in consoling myself in this tent. Shit, how did this get in here? Because I was out of the tent one time. Maybe I don't know what I was carrying. Who knows? Some of these chats are just left better unread, to the theme of some things just better left unread. They thought they were free was just better left unread. Shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have put myself through it. 10 books that screwed up the world was a work that I just shouldn't have read. I shouldn't have read from the perspective of trying to capitulate to the people who don't want me doing this at all. Good morning, Rach. It's funny to me that those same people who don't want me specifically me, doing this at all are the same people who were subscribed to Charlie Kirk. It's very interesting how echo chambers become the thing they formed to talk about. There's this whole adage. There's this whole adage when you go to war that you got to be careful when you go to war with something, that by the end of the war, you aren't that thing. I don't know where that adage comes from, but by the end of their wars with Greece and the Middle East, Gaul, Germany, Poland, the Slavs, the steppe, by the time Rome collapsed, concluded her wars, Rome was no longer recognizably Rome. Rome looked much more like her barbarian war mates than she did like herself. Good morning, KJ. Yeah, for sure. Good morning, Cindy. And so once I am comfortable, I'm going to have a cigarette. Now I'm too warm. Good morning, Kathos. Sorry about marmalade propaganda. I'm just glad, Kathos, that you weren't that person who left me that fucking comment. I was kind of terrified that you were going to show up in the chat today with that guy's fucking PFP and username, and I didn't know that you changed your shit around. And that's where my anxieties come from. And hey, it's working. Hey, Dave. The marmalade thing, Rach. The other day we were talking about foods I didn't like. Because somebody likes to bring up the foods I didn't like. And so we were talking about foods I didn't like. And one of them was a food that Kathos holds dear to her heart. And so I told her that it was okay if she wanted to say something negative about a food that she knows I like, or that she learns I like. And we got to talking about jams and jellies, and somebody brought up marmalade. It might even have been Kathos who brought up marmalade, and I admitted that I like marmalade. And then Kathos goes, orange garbage. And I'm pretty sure that the reason the orange garbage showed up in the chat was because somebody asked what even is marmalade, but the orange garbage just struck me in exactly the right way. That marmalade comment was just so perfect and so perfectly timed, and it just came it two words with so much venom and vitriol and real human emotion behind how she felt about marmalade, that now lives in my life, that now lives in my head. And Kathos with the I apologize for any anti-marmalade propaganda. It's just a morning. Good morning to you as well, Kathos. Had a few beers on a Thursday night. Love it. Okay, that should help a little bit with being itchy. Pew! For the record, my friends, I'm not sure that Lucas is a shrew. I think Lucas is a mouse. Zoinks! Good morning! Zoinks! That's what it was. We were hating. I was talking mad shit about rhubarb, and Kathos was trying to get in her feelings, but Marmalade took a stray. Oh, I'm gonna tell this story for the rest of my life. I love this story. Marmalade took a real stray. Who has such? Who has? I didn't know that I had such strong feelings about rhubarb, and so it was just I such strong feelings about Marmalade. Kathos does. Oh, that's a mole. Okay, so one of my friends, I have a whole colony of critters. That's what's going on. They have banded together. Okay, friend, you're blind. so that you go to the smell of the food makes sense. You have no eyes. I'm working on you, bud. I don't know how you saw me or sensed me, heard me. Here you go, pal. There you go. I'll even cover it with my shoes so you don't feel watched. How's that, big guy? Yeah, he likes that. And that's a mole. That's definitely a mole. And he knew exactly what I was doing. Hey, Kathos. Oh my God. Happy Friday for real. Thank you. Oh my God, Kath. Um, that one is a mole. He's about this big, maybe 3 inches, maybe 4 inches. He's about the size of a big hot dog, of like a beef hot dog. He's all black, has real short skin, real short fur, rather, close to his skin, a snubby nose, and no eyes. He's definitely a mole. He's got the mole head shape. Yes, win. W's for Kathos. Thank you very much. Right as that wasn't Lucas. That was definitely a mole. So if you want to name the mole, I love you, Kathos. Thank you. And Lucas is 100% a mouse. And he and I think we might actually be friends. Um, when I put out food, and he knows I've put out a lot of food, he goes running around this clearing, back and forth in this clearing, chittering and making all kinds of noise at night while I'm laying here. And then I was laying here after dark during the football game, just the game on and my light off, sitting here on the Discord having a smoke, and he didn't know I was still awake, and he went to climb up inside my tent with me and scared the fuck out of himself. Fell down on his back, kicking his little legs, screaming. I could have reached down and picked him up while he was doing all that. Yeah, so there's definitely a mole, and there's definitely a mouse. I looked at the shrew species that live here yesterday. I spent some time yesterday memorizing their faces, and this that I haven't seen any long, skinny, fluffy faces like a shrew. But I've seen a mole. Definitely a mole. That was definitely a mole. And he understood that I was covering up the food so he could get at it without feeling like I was threatening him. Because as soon as I did it, he ran under the thing I covered it with. He absolutely understood what I was doing. Who knew that moles and mice cooperate for food? I bet there are so many worms. I know there are 3 different species of ant that live under me. There's probably so much good natural protein here under the tent. I just hope they're smart and they leave my stuff alone. I just hope they don't fuck up my tent before winter is over. And I hope they're not peeing in here. Somebody went out the back door. All right, so I have the majority of you here. Oh, I said I was gonna have a cigarette. I didn't have the cigarette. I'm gonna have this cigarette. I want my throat to hurt before I read out loud. That's irony, but I meant it. Doodle-doo. Well, he got that off his chest. He didn't want to have a dialogue about it, but he got that off his chest. He just didn't hear me say that some comments are best left unread. Or maybe he thinks I'm a hypocrite and everything I say I immediately undo by I immediately undermine by undoing. You understand what I'm saying? I'm gonna set this fucking sweater on fire with this cigarette. Also, it's gotten just warm enough now that if I take the fucking sweater off, I'm cold. If I leave it on, I'm hot. This is where I live right now. And it matters to me. So I am curious to know who comes here, who arrives, having read or having familiarity with an open poncho I can throw off. Yeah, well, I need to just not be a bitch. Familiarity with Boethius and the Consolation of Philosophy, the book I'm going to be reading, Rach. I may have drifted off. The heart's cute. Don't be afraid to spend those rupees. All of you, those gifts. I do recoup some of that. Okay, well, my book comes with a. Thank you, baby. My book comes with a little bit of an introduction on him. I don't care about the man. I know the basic circumstances of the writing were that he was in prison for heresy or something of the sort. He was in prison for crimes, and he wrote this book, Consolation of Philosophy. It's how he consoled himself through his prison sentence, and his prison sentence was a death sentence. He was awaiting execution in prison, and that parallels Socrates in interesting ways. I haven't been able to get through the Phaedo. In my personal reading, so I haven't read it for the channel. It makes me cry. Um, but this guy, he wrote this as he awaited execution, and he was executed subsequent to writing it. So I'm not 100% sure how it got to me. But I thank God it did, because it gave me an example to follow. It gave me a hero to mimic. It gave me an exemplar to emulate. And emulate, I don't know if you know this, video gamers, but the word emulate, emular, means rival in Latin. Emulare means to rival. So a free emulator is a rival both in basic terms to Nintendo or PlayStation or whomever. It is a rival in basic terms of the word, and it is a rival in technology. It is a rival. And so acting like it's a companion piece is the behavior of a facile college grad. That's the argument of a very facile, very shallow college grad. Hey, for us. Because reading companions are real. Companion pieces to literature and movies and art are real. People will write and create companion pieces. Hey, read this in addition to. This is, I want to contribute to what that person did. Commentaries happen all the time. But if you're going to be a companion piece, if you're going to be a commentary, if you're going to be an act of love, what you can't also be is an emulator. That's called IP theft. That's why I might look a lot like Jim Carrey or whoever you think I look like, but I don't act anything like them. That's their IP. I'm not going to emulate them. Hello, Sahil. How are you? I'm not going to be a rival to them. They're my idols on some level. But dead people who are no longer famous, I have no problem emulating them. I have no problem raising their bar whatsoever. You want to emulate Jesus? You got to be a rival. You got to be better. The admission in Christianity that we are all sinners is a losing game. Well, maybe Keanu Reeves has a shaggy Philalitheia vibe without glasses. Maybe I'm the source. Maybe I'm the original. Maybe Keanu Reeves is a movie star, and movie stars are models who say things sometimes. Models are irreal. Do whatever you want, Sahil. Whether I engage back is the question. Did you read the rules? Can you read the room? Yeah. Shaggy Philalitheia is immortal. Maybe I am the original, post dated in time. Maybe. 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 Those movie makers. Maybe they were reaching towards something that didn't exist yet. Maybe they were grasping toward an idea that hadn't been made real yet in a single human being. Maybe that's what prophecy is. Maybe that's what art is. Maybe. Plato has opinions, and so does that other person that had Cath in their name and freaked me out. Maybe other people know better than I do. We're entitled to our opinions. Titles can be burned and revoked, by the way. At the whim of a capricious king, no less. I don't know what king you're talking about. I am a strange animal. I don't know what king you're talking about. Someone asked me the other day if I don't think I'm human, and I said, no, I'm not human. I'm shaggy. I'm Philalitheia. I'm a strange animal. I don't think I'm an animal. Humans are animals. I'm not an animal. I don't behave like an animal. I don't live like an animal. I don't make choices like an animal. I don't wait till someone covers me up to eat, for example. Sure, it's just also fact. And songs are art. Maybe they're reaching toward something that doesn't exist yet. What up, typical? Typical rage. I've been waiting for a girl like you. I don't know the rest of the words. The rest of the words. To kind me feel alive. I've been waiting. That's a very high note. These are different machines, so they have different button prompts. So Kathos comes. I asked, and Kathos may not have heard, if anyone comes to the conversation, comes to the chat today with pre-existing familiarity. I'm gonna warn you guys now. I let about 200 people that I had muted that didn't know they were hidden from the chat. I let about 200 people come back. So I let a lot of people come back. A lot. I had blocked about 500 people. We begin by giving credit to the advisory editor. This is very important, and I don't always do it. I'm waiting on a publisher to get at me about it. I do that. It's part of my pathological demand avoidance. If you read the bio, you've read it multiple times, what my religion is. Betty Radice, Radice, it might be Radice. She is the advisory editor on this. This was provided to me for free by Penguin Classics. Actually, it might have cost me $10. Regardless, Penguin Classics made this available to us with this very nice, I love the cover. Okay, and now we read the introduction. It's very brief. Anicius, these names are difficult for me. Anicius Boetius, circa AD 480 to 524, the Roman philosopher, has been called one of the last authentic representatives of the classical world, in both his life and writings. He came of a family which had held office in the decaying Western Empire. He was consul in 510, which is basically president of the parliament, and a trusted political advisor to Theodoric, the Ostrogoth. Later, he became involved in a conspiracy and was imprisoned and executed at Ravenna. There we go. That's how he got himself in prison. Didn't have anything to do with religion. The historical importance of his work was immense, because it was only through Boetius's translations that the knowledge of Aristotle survived in the West. He also wrote commentaries on Cicero, textbooks on arithmetic and music, and a number of works on theology, a non-Christian writing about theology. His works were chosen for translation by Alfred the Great, the English king that established the English throne almost immediately, just in time for, 300, 200, 300 years later for, what's his name? William the Great. William the Conqueror. Anyway, Boetius's works were chosen for translation by Alfred the Great, and he was one of the most influential Latin authors for the next 1,000 years. Victor Watts was born in 1938 and read classics in English at Merton College, Oxford, and did a year of postgraduate work at University College London. He is Master of Grey College and Dean of Colleges at Durham University. His publications include articles and reviews, a dictionary of County Durham place names, and an edition of On Trees and Herbs, Book 17 of the Medieval Encyclopedia on the Properties of Things, by Bartholomeus Anglicus. He is Honorary Director of the English Place Name Survey and editor of the Cambridge Dictionary of English Place Names, and I'm assuming that he is our true, translated with an introduction by Victor Watts. He's our true editor. Advisory editor Betty Radis, actual editor Victor Watts. We move on. Here's our preface. This is written to us by Victor Watts. It's important that he gets credit for this. This is not me. The issue of a revised edition of the translation of the Consolation of Philosophy and has enabled me, Victor Watts, to correct mistakes, improve the wording of one or two passages, and take account of recent work on Boethius and his age. Since the first edition, several important books have appeared. The commemoration of the 15th centenary of his birth in 1980 saw the appearance of two major contributions. Boethius, The Consolations of Music, Logic, Theology, and Philosophy, one work, by Henry Chadwick, Clarendon Press, Oxford, 1981, and Boethius, His Life, Thoughts, and Influence, a work, a collection of studies edited by Margaret Gibson, Basil Blackwell, Oxford, 1981, including a fine literary analysis of the Consolation by Anna Crabbe, probably just Crabbe. Boethius's literary structure and methods have also been exhaustively examined in J. Gruber's Kommentar zu Boethius de Consolatione Philosophiae, Texte und Kommentare, 9, Berlin, 1978. Seth Lehrer's Boethius in Dialogue, Literary Method in the Consolation of Philosophy, one work, Princeton, New Jersey, 1985, and Gerardo Daly's The Poetry of Boethius, Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina Press, 1991, and his antecedents and influence by Pierre Courcelle in La Consolation de Philosophie dans la Tradition Littéraire, Paris, 1976. In his article on Boethius in the Dictionnaire des Lettres Français, Le Moyen Âge, Paris, 1964, and in Jamie Scott's Christians and Tyrants, The Prison Testimonies of Boethius, Thomas More and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, New York, 1995. Notable also are the entries. I would love to read all of these, by the way. None of them is outside, none of these works is in public domain. The closest one is next year with Pierre Courcelle. Notable also are the entries on Boethius by L. Minio Pulelo in Encyclopedia Britannica, 1968, and the Dictionary of Scientific Biography 2, New York, 1970, and the articles by S.F. Wiltshire, Boethius and the Summum Bonum in the Classical Journal, 67, 1972, and C.J. de Vogel, The Problem of Philosophy and Christian Faith in Boethius and Romanitas et Christianitas, Studia J.H. Wozniak, Amsterdam, 1973. Our understanding of the relationship between Christianity and the pagan cultural background of the 6th century has become clearer since Henry Chadwick drew attention to the long tradition of Christian humanism which lies behind the Consolation. The link between the great senatorial families and the higher clergy in Rome was close, and so far from conversion entailing the rejection of pagan antiquity and custom, it seems to have brought with it a positive attitude to the literature and thought of antiquity. Indeed, apart from the study of pagan philosophy, the editorial attention paid to classical authors such as Virgil and Horace, and the care and restoration of ancient buildings, even originally pagan festivals such as the Lupercalia and the July Games at Rome in honor of Apollo, continued to be fully celebrated in Boethius's time. 528 is when he died. As Chadwick makes clear, this Christian love of the past, this is a quote, even when associated with some of the external forms of pagan ceremony, is of some importance as background for estimating the position of Boethius and his circle between classic culture and Christian belief. End quote. This absence of tension between pagan and Christian tradition was able to foster a milieu in which the concept of the twofold approach to truth, one via the exercise of the reason, one via revelation, was natural and easy to maintain. The study of natural theology was in this context as valid as the study of revealed theology, and it was to the former that throughout his life Boethius had devoted his formidable intellectual powers. There is further personal circumstance pointed out by Anna Crabbe, which seems to go far to account for the absence of overt Christian reference in the Consolation. In contrast to Augustine, to whom it is now clear Boethius's indebtedness was profound, the son of a pagan father who came to conversion only as the result of passionate intellectual searching and painful emotional struggle, and whose work, as a result, shows a deep personal relationship with the God he discovered. Boethius was born into a Christian family, faced no such emotional turmoil or intellectual challenge, and was able to devote his powers not to the discovery of a new religion, but to the logical exposition of the theology that underpinned it, Christianity. In the prison house, during the last months of his life, so far from dissolution or apostasy, what he achieved was a brilliant summation of the moral and protreptic, I don't know that word, lessons of his life's intellectual work. An argument largely non-technical, adorned by literary and philosophical allusions drawn from a mind over many years immersed in the great writers of the classical past. The shaggy of shaggy Philalitheia is using non-technical terminology to talk about the Most High. Okay. Introduction. Still by our editor, Victor Watts. This is important shit to me, so I'm reading it. This has footnotes that I may or may not engage with. The consolation of philosophy has been many things to many men, says Victor Watts. In a much quoted phrase, Gibbon, Edward Gibbon, author of The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, I believe is what it's called. Gibbon described it as, quote, a golden volume, not unworthy of the leisure of Plato or Tully. And golden doesn't mean shiny. It means untarnishable by time. Though he found its philosophy ineffectual. 1. The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. Edition J.B. Bury, London, 1898. 4, page 201. The Middle Ages did not find it so and provided the Consolation with a long series of translators, commentators, and imitators, not emulators. King Alfred turned it into Old English for the education and enjoyment of his Anglo-Saxon subjects, and Chaucer and John the Chaplain into Middle English. Notco Lebeo and Peter von Kassel turned it into medieval German, and Simon de Fresne, Jean de Meung, and others, that's probably Frayne, Simon de Frayne and Jean de Meung, and others into Old French. There were versions in Greek and Middle Dutch and Old Provençal, and Italian and in Spanish. Later, an English queen, Elizabeth I, turned her hand to Englishing the Consolation, and the tradition of translation still continues, though most of us need rather longer than the 27 hours in which she is reputed to have completed her version. I would like to read that again, because this is good prose, and it made me laugh. Actually, it made me laugh a lot. I'm actually ebullient with joy for how beautiful this turn of phrase is. Later, an English queen, Elizabeth I, turned her hand to Englishing the Consolation. And the tradition of translation still continues, though most of us need rather longer than the 24 or 27 hours in which she is reputed to have completed her version. Boethius stands at the crossroads of the classical and medieval worlds. No philosopher, wrote Richard Morris, quote, was so bone of the bone and flesh of the flesh of middle-aged writers as Boethius. Take up what writer you will, and you find not only the sentiments but the very words of the distinguished old Roman, end quote. This is important to me, and I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, because this is what Rob would have read. This would have been what he just read to kill time. The extent and diffusion of Boethius's influence have been traced elsewhere. In the case of the Consolation, it was due no doubt to the fact that here Boethius was attempting something other than a formal philosophical treatise. In the confines of prison, he was no longer concerned with the minute details and technicalities of argument, but with the consolation to be gained from a broad and general philosophical meditation. In retrospect, though I do not think this aspect of his work would have occurred to Boethius himself, says Victor Watts, it is perhaps justified to regard him as the divine popularizer. This popular quality was doubly important. Firstly, along with the fact that Boethius was no mean poet, it made the consolation available to the poets. In Britain, it inspired the author of the King's Quair, to meditate on the wheel of fortune and write his remarkable little poem. While almost all the passages of the philosophical reflection of any length in the works of Chaucer can be traced to Boethius, and in Italy, to cite only one other example, Dante Alighieri set Boethius among the 12 lights in the heaven of the sun, calling him, quote, that joy who strips the world's hypocrisies, bear to whoever heeds his cogent phrases. I just embarrassed myself because I still struggle with the difference between capital B's, with B's and D's, and my first grade teacher yelled at me at length for it. For a long, continues Victor with Cicero's De Amicitia, the words of Boethius, he tells us, provided him, with Cicero, with his greatest consolation after the death of Beatrice. Sorry, not Cicero, Dante. The Paradise actually ends with a reminiscence of Boethius' Caelo Imperitans Amor, that is, the love that moves the sun and other stars. And Divine Comedy was as a whole, could be regarded as a great elaboration of Boethius' concept of the ascent of the soul to the contemplation of the mind of God, and its return to its true home of patria in the scheme of the universe. You argue with me about the Christian universe. You're arguing with me about a Christian philosopher who identified first as a philosopher, second as a Christian. Someone who was a cultural Christian, but an intellectual philosopher. A higher religion. When you ask me what is my religion is Philalitheia. And Philalitheia is a higher abstraction, even than philosophy. The ascent of the soul to the contemplation of the mind of God is not Boethius's. That's not Boethius's concept. It's Plotinus's. And Plotinus was elaborating Plato, who was elaborating Socrates, who was elaborating the Proto-Indo-European shamanistic religion before it was a religion, as you would understand it. I am that. Secondly, the broad scope, continues Victor, and gentle tone of the Consolation produced, quote, the book of most serene and kindly wisdom that the Middle Ages knew, end quote. That was Helen Waddell, The Wandering Scholars, also Penguin Books, 1954. We could read that. In fact, if I see a super like, super chat, if I see a super comment, I'll buy it, because it's probably free. It was the book, that is, Consolation was the book that, quote, saved the thought of the Middle Ages, end quote, wrote W.P. Kerr in his short but lucid account of Boethius. 8 is The Dark Ages, Edinburgh, London, 1923. Also, I could read that. The beauty of it which lifts it far above the ordinary run of reflections on mortality, is that it restores a Platonic tradition, or even something older and simpler in Greek philosophy, at a time when simplicity and clearness of thought were about to be overwhelmed in the medieval confusion. He ellipsates here because he wants you to think about it. His protection, 528, is about 100 years before the total collapse of the Western Empire. His protection was always, that is, Boethius's protection was always to be had by anyone who found the divisions and distinctions of the schools too much for him. In the consolation of philosophy, there was a place of outlook from which the less valuable matters sank back into their proper place, and the real outlines of the world were brought into view. Ellipses. There can be little question that Boethius, more than any other philosophic author, helped the great schoolmen to retain a general comprehensive view of the world as a whole, in spite of the distractions of their minute inquiries. End quote. 2. Boethius's life and writings. Anicius Manlius Severinus Boetius, born in or about AD 40, was a member of an ancient and aristocratic family, the gens Anicia. Since their conversion to Christianity in the 4th century, the 300s, unusually early for an established and conservative family, the Nicii had risen to great power and wealth. That's probably Anicii. Had risen to great power and wealth, and among his ancestors and kinsmen, besides many consuls, Boethius could number 2 emperors and a pope. His father himself had followed an honorable career of public service, attaining to the consulship under the barbarian king Odoacer in 487, but dying while his son was still a boy. Boethius was brought up in the home of another patrician family, that of the famous Quintus Aurelius Memmius Symmachus, consul in 485, and later prefect of Rome and head of the Senate. It was Symmachus who introduced Boethius to the worlds of literature and philosophy, and of him and of his daughter, Rusticiana, whom he later married. Boethius speaks in the Consolation with reverence and admiration. According to his kinsman, Enodius, Boethius was something of an infant prodigy and early showed an unusual passion for study. His education, whether at Athens or not, was of the highest quality, and as a young man, Boethius was master of all the liberal arts, from rhetoric to logic and astronomy. Both Enodius and Cassiodorus, another kinsman of Boethius and a cabinet minister of Theodoric the Ostrogoth, speak of Boethius's eloquence, his perfection of style, and his perfect command of Greek, an accomplishment of growing rarity at the end of the 5th century, 400s. At an early age and in a manner unknown to us, Boethius came to the notice of the great Ostrogothic king Theodoric, who had defeated Odoacer and murdered him in 493. Notice it's not called an assassination, it's just a murder. Theodoric, in the most flattering terms, commissioned him to construct a water clock and sundial for Gundobad, king of the Burgundians, and to choose a lyre player for Chloe. Chloe is actually his name. You'll hear it pronounced Clovis, but Clovis, king of the Franks, is actually pronounced Chloe. His name is Chloe. He was also employed to investigate a case of alleged debasement of the coinage by the paymaster of the lifeguards. Interesting parallel. That's actually what Isaac Newton did with most of his career. When people talk about, oh, he spent all his time with alchemy, he was actually investigating the debasement of the coinage. And in 510, Boethius was made consul without companion. Thus, at the age of 30, he held what was traditionally the most illustrious of all the Roman offices, dignities denied to the majority of men at any age. Although in the days of Theodoric, the consulate was of little more than titular importance. Titular importance. You're entitled to your opinion, but your opinion has titular importance. None. Later, the year is not known, Theodoric made him magister officiorum, a position which involved him in onerous and responsible duties. He became head of the whole civil service and chief of the palace officials. And then in 522 came the moment which Boethius still regarded, even in prison, as the hour of his greatest happiness, the day when his two boys were appointed consuls together. It was a unique honor accorded to the father and implies his joint recognition by both Theodoric and the emperor in Constantinople. The years immediately following his own consulship are obscure, but it is during that period that he must have pursued the studies he had begun in the house of Symmachus, for the duties of Magister Officiorum involving, as they must have done, prolonged absences from Rome at the court in Verona or Ravenna, would have parted him from his library and allowed him little time for his impassioned pursuit of the philosophy which he considered his summum vitae solamentum, his chief solace in life. It was not in the forefront of public life, but in the study and treatment of all the branches of philosophy that Boethius's true calling lay, and he pursued this aim with a single-minded dedication and methodical steadfastness which only the recollection of his childhood precocity renders less than astounding. It is here that the real Boethius is clearest to view, the scholarly character, the calm, almost leisured approach to his self-appointed task. It was not the retreat of an escapist from the acute feeling of the insignificance of the once proud offices of the Roman state, but the deliberate plan of the dedicated student to give his fellow countrymen the basis they still lacked for a true scholarly study of philosophy. Quote, Boethius saw himself, end quote, Campenhausen writes, continuing, as the schoolmaster of the West, full end quote. Complete utterances. Wait, I must have skipped a whole page there. Yes, I did. No, wait. I skipped a paragraph. I wish, Boethius says, to translate the whole work of Aristotle, so far as it is accessible to me, into the Roman idiom, and conscientiously offer his complete utterances in the Latin tongue. Everything Aristotle ever wrote on the difficult art of logic, on the important realm of moral experience, and on the exact comprehension of natural objects. I shall translate in the correct order. Moreover, I shall make all this comprehensible by interpretive explanations. I shall also like to translate, I shall make this comprehensible with companion pieces, as I was talking about earlier. I should also like to translate all Plato's dialogues and likewise explain them, says Boethius, and thus present them in a Latin version. When this is accomplished, I will furthermore not shrink from providing that the Aristotelian and Platonic conceptions in every way harmonize and do not, as is widely supposed, completely contradict each other. He couldn't do that in any lifetime. I will show, he continues, moreover, that they are in agreement with one another at the philosophically decisive points. This is the task to which I will dedicate myself, so far as life and leisure for work are vouchsafed to me. I know that this will be as useful as it is laborious, and that it needs the assistance of those powers which are ever alien to envy and jealousy. Hello, Lippy. So those of you who ask me, why don't you write a book? Why aren't you writing a book? The book I would be writing is that. Translations and commentaries on good work. Boethius did not fulfill his plan, but he did not finish translations of Porphyry's introduction to the categories of Aristotle. Boethius did not fulfill his plan, but he did finish translations of Porphyry's introduction to the categories of Aristotle, to serve as a student's introduction, a companion piece, and Aristotle's works of logic. These included the De Interpretatione, the Topics, the Prior and Posterior Analytics, and the Sophistical Fallacies. Those are all different works. And it is clear that he also knew Aristotle's Metaphysics, Physics, De Generatione et Corruptione, De Anima, and Poetics. I've read all of this Aristotle, by the way. Furthermore, he wrote commentaries on Porphyry's introduction, on probably all the works of Aristotle that he translated, and on Cicero's Topics. But his philosophical work was not entirely one of transmission. He also wrote 5 independent works. of his own on logic. The historical importance of all this work was immense, because it was only through Boethius's translations of his logic that the knowledge of Aristotle survived in the West. In fact, I've written a companion piece. Actually, I have written a companion piece. I have written an extensive and thorough companion piece to The House of Dark, House of Light by the first one, and some of the second one by Andrea Perrin. And I would finish the companion piece if a motherfucker would read it. Both works. By his careful literal translation of philosophical terms, Boethius created a new philosophical vocabulary for the medieval schoolmen. And in his commentaries, he offered them a model for their own commentaries on Aristotle. The great medieval debate between nominalist and realist has its seeds in a passage in Boethius's commentary on Porphyry. Quote, "The last of the Romans, the first of the scholastics," end quote. The formula summarizes Boethius's position as the channel through whose precise and organized systematization philosophy passed from the ancient world to the academic discussions of scholasticism. Isn't shaggy Philalitheia a channel? A channel from what to what? The liberal arts, too, had value for him. As for St. Augustine, as a propedeutic, I don't know that word, to philosophy. Consequently, he wrote treatises, or rather translations of treatises, on arithmetic, on geometry, and possibly on astronomy and mechanics. These were important mechanics, machines. What's the difference in what he was doing, what any college student is doing today? Lippy, can you tell me the difference in your education and what Boethius already knew? The liberal arts, too, had value for him, as for St. Augustine, as a propedeutic to philosophy. Consequently, he wrote treatises, or rather translations of treatises, on arithmetic, on geometry, and possibly on astronomy and mechanics. These were important in the development of medieval education. His treatise on music, for instance, remained a textbook at Oxford until the 18th century. Boethius also gave us the word quadrivium, believing that, quote, "it was impossible to achieve the summit of perfection in the disciplines of philosophy unless one approached the noble wisdom by a kind of fourfold way." If you've listened to my work, you've heard me talk about you can't get at anything complex without threes, and you can't do anything with them without fours. He is also accredited with 5 small works or tractates of theology, the authenticity of at least 4 of which is beyond doubt. They are completely orthodox in doctrine and are important as representing the attempt of a philosopher primarily interested in logic to apply the methods of philosophy to the support of a body of revealed truth, which exists in its own right. Revealed truth is called gnosis, or revelation. And his application of logical methods and the terminology of Aristotle to theological problems, Boethius clearly stands out, again, as a forerunner of the scholastics. The greatest scholastic of which is Thomas Aquinas and the Summa Theologica, which I've read many books of. All this activity forms the intellectual background of his last great work, the work for which above all else he is remembered, and yet it is surrounded by question marks. What were the circumstances of its composition? Why did the trusted right-hand servant of Theodoric fall so abruptly from power? Was Boethius a Christian? And if so, why does the Consolation lack all reference to the faith that should have been his greatest consolation in the hours of imprisonment and pending death? Only one of these questions can be answered with certainty. Since the authorship of the theological tractates, with perhaps one exception, since the authorship is unimpeachable, and since in any case it would have been impossible for an overt pagan to have risen so high in public life in the early 6th century, scholarship is satisfied that Boethius must have been a Christian. But while the fact of his Christianity cannot be doubted, its quality is still a matter on which there is disagreement. Doesn't this sound like Karl Marx? And while the historical facts surrounding his downfall are beyond recall from Boethius's own words in the testimonies of the times, a hypothesis can be constructed. This is a long footnote, so I'm going to read it. For an account of the evidence and various views, see H.F. Stewart, I don't know what those mean. E.K. Rand, Founders of the Middle Ages, Harvard University Press, 1929. We can do that. M. Capuns, Boeche, and Dictionnaire d'Histoire et de Géographie Ecclésiastique, 9, 1937. And H.M. Barrett, Boetius, Some Aspects of His Time and Work, Cambridge, 1940. All of those are in public domain. In the account which follows, I am chiefly indebted to Copenhausen, op. cit. cf. That's not a real C. Also, W.C. Bark, Theodoric versus Boethius, an American Historical Review. Theodoric versus Boethius, an American Historical Review. XL is 99, 1944 pp. That's page 410 through 426. Continuing from the main work. It must be remembered that since the beginning of the 4th century, the Roman Empire had been provided with an eastern capital at Constantinople, and that since the end of the century, it had been governed by the joint rule of a western and an eastern emperor. In 476, the barbarian Odoacer deposed the last emperor of the West and sent the imperial insignia to Constantinople. In barbarian eyes only, a Roman could assume the purple, and Odoacer seems to have been content to preserve the imperial administration in Rome and recognize the Eastern Zeno as sole emperor in return for the title Patricius. I have one of these left. I'm suddenly hungry. We're going to take a break. I'm going to be reading this all day long. I'm going to be reading this until it's done, and then I'm going to be reading from it at length whenever Christians annoy me. How are those of you who are still here with me? 5 of you are not bored, presumably. How are you? So far, so good, Sander. Yes, Sohail. Or Soheil. Sahil. Sorry. There's a Sohail that bothers me too. What up, Callisto? Christianity isn't a nationality, Sahil. Neither is Islam, bud. Of Jesus and America too. And our boyfriend too. Uh-oh. What have you done with my pants? Oh, I remember what I do with my pants. Damn it. The Bills didn't put up 70. The Dolphins showed up in a big way. But Joe Brady is not my favorite offensive coordinator. I'll put it that way. I don't know if you were watching Josh Allen's body language by the end of the third quarter, but he was pissed off that they weren't throwing it downfield against that depleted secondary. He was actively pissed off about it. He was petulant and stomping around after every play call. I was watching it with Rach last night, and she can confirm if she wants to, if she's near her keyboard right now, but she can confirm that after one play, he was stomping around and yelling after the play call, and I said they're going to run it right here, and he knows that they could throw it and get a first down, and they're not going to get a first down, and they didn't. I know that, Sahil. That's why I said there's another guy with your name. There's another guy from your region with a similar name who also annoys me. That is what I said. I remember it because I'm the one who said it. Free falling. Ah! The irony there was awesome. I didn't mean for that to happen. I didn't know it was going to happen either. I'm going to clip that one out. That one made me laugh. And now you're Good? Good, Alec? Yeah, Josh Allen didn't like that they didn't win by 70. Miami was down. They had four. They had four injured corners. Four injured corners in that game. And Josh Jones, I think is his name, went down. Yeah, I really wanted to see them finally break that. That's 10 years. They haven't won. They haven't won in Buffalo in 10 years, and they're not going to do it next year either because they're going to be in a full rebuild next year. They're going to be selling that team for parts. They really need to sell. They really need to sell Bradley Chubb and fuck, I've gone and forgot his name. Help me out with this. Help me out, OPM. You know his name. Judon. Matthew Judon. They really need to sell those guys. Sell them for fourth, fifth. I don't give a fuck. Sell them. They got to get those guys on real teams. It's McDaniels is going to get fired by week 6. They're going to start 0-6 and he's gone. He didn't win last night. His fan base calls him a crackhead. They're done with him, man. I told Rach that it was going to be an absolute dumpster fire in Miami today, and the internet is an absolute dumpster fire because of Miami, and it's got me seriously emotionally fucked up. That's why I'm reading Boethia straight up to you, honestly with you. The Dolphins have me reading the Consolation of Philosophy to get through them. The philosophy for the football fan is because I need it. I need it to get through the season. It's not a joke for me. Look at my hair. Fuck. I'm listening to 70s prog so I don't fucking scream. All of this is real. None of this is an act. None of it is an affect. And I woke up to a guy saying to me, nah, plenty of immaterial things are also real. I'm not watching it again, OPM. I almost said out loud, if you want to get in the Discord, I'll stream it, but I'm not gonna. I don't love you that much. I'm sorry to admit that. Last night hurt me. I watched the Dolphins lose 2 times in a 24-hour span by accident, and it's affected me negatively. Just abject disgust. Just abject disgust. I wanted fucking Herbert. I wanted Herbert. You guys don't know me from 2018. I used to be dialed in. I used to know the quarterbacks. I used to watch game film. I wanted Herbert. Bad. Hey, if you want to talk your ear off to me in the way I'm talking your ear off right now, Kathos, about NHL, I'll give about as much a shit as everybody else gives a shit when I talk football. Ugh. I'll do my best, I think is what I mean by that. I should not be putting these socks on my feet. I should be putting on fresh socks. These are gross. I walked in the sun for a really long time yesterday. I am emotionally agitated. Can anyone see it? You have nothing to be sorry about. You have absolutely nothing to be sorry about. I could hide it if I wanted. I'm just letting you see it. So that you know what it looks like in other people. So you can be, oh, they're acting like Shaggy acts when he's freaking out about something. Freaking about something that's not real. The Dolphins aren't even my fucking team. The Bengals are 2-0 and they're probably going to win this weekend. I am always about to flip out, Chris. That I'm on YouTube, man. I gotta draw and keep a fucking audience. You guys don't stay when I'm at peace. It's too many of you are talking all at once. Hi, Watson. Seems like, Sahil. Winnipeg Whiteout, heard that, Kathos. I'm not going to watch that fucking sport. I'm sorry, Kathos. I've already pledged to watch the NBA, and ask Jazz. Ask him how committed I am to outside the hat. I'll wear your fucking team. I'll wear a hat. I'll wear a beanie. Kathos. I'll look for a beanie today. Because I haven't said it yet, because I don't like to glitch. I don't like to glitch things. I don't like to jinx things. But my estimated income is over $600. So as soon as I'm allowed to cash that out, we've done the laptop. We've done the laptop. So now it's just having fun, encouraging people to buy memberships. And for me, it's the Patreon. If I'm going to get in a house, it's got to be the memberships and the Patreon. Hey, Smokey. Hey, Angela. So if you want to help me, keep doing what you're doing. But the Patreon and the Patreon, the PayPal, the Cash App, those are what I have the most immediate access to. Now that we've crossed $600 in the laptop, you promised me that we would get the laptop done this month. We got the laptop done. Now I just got to get that money out, which could take forever. Who knows? Keep doing what you guys are doing. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing from day to day. So just keep doing what you're doing. Okay. Oh, I love. Where would you be now without love? I don't know this song's lyrics. But I do know that we played this song in band, and I used to go absolutely fucking ham for this song. Played it on trumpet. Without love. It was our encore. We used to finish our show and then come right up onto the track for our home fans, right up against the stadiums, and play this as loud as we fucking could, and it was a great fucking time. Everybody liked it. And I used to go ape shit. Long Train Running, for those of you who don't know the song. Yeah, I need a beanie, Kath. So tell me your team. Oh, Marvel got one. Hey, welcome around, guys. Kath, you're already member, babe. Thank you for that, though. That was very cool. Hey, thanks for being here, guys. I've just made acquaintance with a bunch of strangers. Nice to see you guys. Stick around. Be afraid as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Won't you stand by me? I don't know the words. The sky should tumble and fall. I haven't seen Marble in a while. Winnipeg Jets, heard that. I look for that. I might have to ask my sugar mama for a little bit of help with that, but I bet I can find a Winnipeg beanie that doesn't look stupid on me. And then when people ask me, "What the hell? You like the Winnipeg Jets, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Utah Jazz? Where the fuck are your allegiances?" I will say, to my Blue Crew. And people will be like, "Yeah, but that's what the fucking Columbus soccer team is called. The Crew." And is it the Columbus hockey team called like the Blue Angels or something stupid like that? Where are your allegiances to Ohio? Not with Ohio, homie. Ohio can eat my nuts. I like the Bengals for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase is still healthy. So I'm still in on the season. I still have an in. I thought I was out, but they brought me back in. Is a quote, sound drop from a movie I've not actually ever seen. Don't start with me on your Godfather 2 references. I haven't actually watched that movie. I say it for the people who like to hear it out of context. Oh, my feet hurt now. I shouldn't have stayed in that position for so long on my ankles. I'll never be your beast of burden. My back is broad, but it's a hurtin'. But now he wants sex, so the song took a weird turn. You ever actually listen to the lyrics of these songs? Dudes are like, "Oh, I love you, but I'm not going to commit to you. Sex." I'm not going to be your beast of burden, but sex, please. Am I rich enough? Make sweet love to me. What scumbag? And then the nice guy response is to be like, women will listen to this and say, all men. Who do I sound like? Who do I sound like? Who do I sound like? Not all men. Not all men. Who do I sound like? I sound like I'm bleeding out of the neck. Not all men. You think that was his final words? You think he went down spewing hate, or do you think he went down crying for his mom? Like, do you think he went down gasping, trans people aren't real? Black people have lower intelligence. Do you think he died saying these things? Do you think he actually believed them? Or do you think he died whimpering for his mom and regretting every choice he ever made? You keep telling me I ain't your kind of man, but I just want you to make love to me. That might have something to do with it, bro. No, you're just annoying and bothersome, and you don't take no for an answer. That's why. And also because you don't want to be her beast of burden. Maybe she wants you to carry that bag for her. Maybe it's heavy. Asshole. I don't do that, Angela. The Philalitheia totem pole says that what you wear is who you are, what you buy is who you are, how you spend your money is your free speech. So I never wear anything that I don't approve of. I don't wear anything that doesn't represent me in some way, ever. Haven't ever in my entire life. Never. That's been a conscientious decision since I knew there was an option. I learned there was an option in 4th grade. It's been a conscientious choice since 4th grade. But I've always been me. So I have only ever worn iconography that represents me in some way. Yeah, exhausting for sure. Bootlicker types are exhausting for sure. I don't know why I didn't just change that song. What up, Pacers? I can only root for one NBA team at a time. On my person, and I'm not collecting hats. So don't get all insecure and stuff. I'm not rooting against anyone. But NBA Twitter is fucking boring. Huh? Yeah, what's up with the hat? My guy, sports jazz fan, bought it for me. I said I needed a new hat, and he said, here's $20. And I said, done. I don't actually watch NBA. It's jazz, yeah. Yeah, it's jazz. That's why I was telling you, Pacers, like, we seem to have the same color scheme, but I can only root for one team at a time. But I'm not going to I'm going to cheer your team on when you tell me that they're playing, and I'm going to boo for your opponents unless they're the Jazz. I have no idea what's going on with the NBA. I don't know the divisions. I don't know the conferences. I barely know the rules. I sat in practice yesterday by hanging out at the pizza cottage and watching some NCAA women's March Madness tournament championship, whatever that is. I was struck by how much smaller they are than college dudes. That's all good then. I just thought it would be funny for us to talk about a little bit. Like, don't get insecure. Walking. These 1970s songs aren't fast enough. No, I don't have a P.O. box yet, Kathos. I'm still working on that. Our mail system here is weird. I haven't decided yet, Pacers, whether I'm going to go to Panera and just set up outside and have something to drink. I'm hungry. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk over here to the pizza cottage. I'm going to tell you guys that to have a good afternoon and that you'll see me around noon Eastern. I haven't decided yet. I don't actually know how much money I have. I've stopped looking at it. Yeah, the P.O. box is affordable. It's just there's some paperwork that I gotta have that I don't have, and I gotta make sure that this hold that I have on my mail is gonna work before I try to send anything else, because getting my mail from that woman I used to live with is just not gonna happen, and I don't have any other friends. I don't know anyone else in this town. Yeah, this is where I do all my shopping. I might walk over here. Let's see if I can see it. There's a pizza cottage over there somewhere. Falling down. Ha, 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 ha. It's hard to walk to this stuff. Yeah, I live right over behind the Coles, wherever that is. It's hard to do perspective with the thing like that. I went the long way because they're doing construction or something over by the other side of the Coles, and I'm not trying to give them the idea that I'm trying to steal. I'm glad that you don't, Angela. I like the freedom. I like the self-reliance, believe it or not. Forget about me. Hey, Billy, what up? How you doing? Send the love me. Stuck away, then come on. Do not know the words. Falling down, 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 down. That's me. Whew. Legs hurt today. Legs hurt bad today, actually. Ha, 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 ha. I actually don't know what time it is. Oh, it's basically just in time. Maybe what I will do is, yeah, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna have lunch. And then I'm gonna set up at, you're failing your exams. Why are you doing that, Billy? That seems like the opposite of what I would recommend that you do with your exams. Well, you got to work around your ADHD, and you got to make sure you do the studying. You got to learn it somehow. So gamify it. Do it with other people. There've got to be other people in your class. There got to be people you can talk about what you're learning. Learning alone is the most inefficient way you could possibly learn it. Studying the way you're doing it is the least efficient way possible. You're just guaranteeing yourself that you won't learn it. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. I have a whole video, like 5 tips for learning, Billy, and zero of those tips is to stare at a notebook telling yourself I'm never going to learn this way. What up, Vito? All right, you guys got about 2 minutes. It's almost over. Oh, I went off this leg anyway. Yes? Reading aloud, talking about it is a way to get it trapped in your neurons, because what you're trying to do is get the information trapped in your neurons. But this is the end of the show. I love you guys. Billy, I have a whole video about this on the channel. It's called like 5 tips for learning or something like that. I'm sure you'll find it. Yep, take care, OPM. Enjoy that as much as it's possible to enjoy that shit show of a game. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys in about an hour. I'm going to get something to eat, and then I'm going to get over to the Panera.